Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to ECSR second webinar. Thanks for taking time off, and we can go over those videos that we have and all the other information. With us here tonight is Manny Ortiz, Tina Sierra, Roger Morton, and our special guest, Ryan Sigis from NCAA. Before we start, any questions you may have, you can put them on the chat, and we're going to discuss all those questions and answer at the end. It depends how much time we have. In the meantime, enjoy those videos, and I want to bring up Ryan Sigis, and we can go over some of the NCAA stuff for the spring. Ryan, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Good evening, Steve.
Thank you, Ryan.
Do you want me to take a Q&A or go through the timeline, or what all would you like for me to cover?
Can you just go over what they need to do in as far as playoffs and NCAA stuff for the spring?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So right now, the plans are the NCAA is going to hold a Division I championships. That's going to be held the weekend of May 13th through 16th. And the format for this spring is going to be combine both the men and the women at the same site, which hasn't been done before, but they've been talking about this and considering this now for a few years. So I think this is a good time as any, to try this out. Not be a championship Division II and Division III. They will not have an NCAA championship. That doesn't mean that there won't be your conference tournaments and conference playoffs. I think most of, at least right now, depending on the region of the country, I know some in the Northeast have decided not to play, but in large parts of the country, there will be Division II and III games played regular season and then conference tournament. But like I said, there will not be a NCAA championship crown for this spring. The reason why they decided to do that is because if you recall last spring, when COVID started, they canceled the spring sports. So now they have to give those sports an opportunity to play a championship. So I think a lot of the universities, a lot of the sites in the NCAA really didn't have the capabilities from a bandwidth perspective and site selection, etc., logistics to do all the sports within a short period of time. So that's the reason for that. The Division I men and women will start, I believe it's around April 29th. And then, like I said, they will play up until those championship weekend that I mentioned. The registration site on the NCAA website is open. So the registration process is the same that it has been in the past on the center circle on the central hub there on the Arbiter. I can take any questions. Steve, Manny, you want to?
Hey, Ryan, question. Hey, Ryan, do they have to pay for the spring and then register again to pay again for the fall? How's it going to work this year?
Well, for those of you that registered last summer, when the registration opened in July, that registration is good for 1 year. So that is going through this spring. If you did not, then that registration is open and it will be good for this season through the spring.
Okay.
Ryan, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your help. Has there been any recent updates as far as the COVID? Has there been any recent changes to that with the NCAA guidelines as far as that goes?
Can you get a little more specific, Manny? Guidelines like pre-game, post-game?
Correct, both. Pre-game and post-game, yes. I don't know if there's been any recent changes or not.
No, not that I know of. I mean, the medical group work with all the conferences coming up with those protocols. Those of you who've been officiating any games this past fall probably familiar with those. It's encouraged not to carpool together. Some of the conferences are doing testings. Others are doing temperature checks. Electronic whistle is recommended. Masking once you arrive. halftime, pregame, all that sort of stuff. If you're having any communication, prolonged communication with the coaching staff, or even maybe with the players on the field, keep a mask in your pocket, put it on briefly to have those discussions. Those are the criteria that was established, not just for soccer, but for all sports with some variations.
Ryan, a question came in from the referees. The question is there a deadline for the spring, and is what that deadline is for registration for the NCAA?
Yeah, good question. No, there is no deadline. The site's open and will remain open.
Another question, Ryan, that some referees asked me, in terms of the game requirements for Division I, is there going to be, has that changed, or is the NCAA going to be flexible on that, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, pretty much the game requirements are going to be waived.
Okay.
Anything else for Ryan? Ryan, you're going to be staying on for the whole presentation? We can maybe have some more
I'm going to
questions.
be, yeah, I am.
Okay.
Staying on.
All right. We need to, we have the fighting one and fighting two, then the goal kicks and restarts and the free kicks. So, all right, let's go ahead and start with that, okay?
Oh.
Manny and Chin?
Gentlemen, before we go in, I have one more last question for Ryan. Quickly, Ron, are there any protocols within the NCAA dealing with cold weather? Has that been addressed yet for player safety?
No, not particularly. I mean, I think we have this issue usually in the fall as well in the northern states. But I mean, I would say use a common sense approach. I wouldn't be too worried about. Obviously, you have to take a player's safety into mind, but I would not be too concerned with if players are wearing, the gaiters or anything to keep them warm. Officials as well, but no protocols formally have come out. But we're starting up here in a couple of weeks, right? For even in the Northeast and up in the upper Midwest. So common sense.
Yep.
Has another question, Ryan, that other referees have asked me in terms of field dimensions. What's the NCAA's thought on that with specifically fields that are obviously too narrow or don't meet the field requirements when they try to play indoor games in the Midwest or in the Northeast?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good question as well. We have had some requests come in already from universities through their conference to give exceptions to the field requirements so that they can play indoors, and that is being done. I've seen a couple of those now each week for the last few weeks. So I know several universities do have indoor facilities that they will be playing in, and that is outlined and stipulated in the NCAA rulebook.
May I add something to it, Ryan? I did have some information from the conference because a whole bunch of games, my games, are going to be playing indoor, and they say as long as both teams agree to it and they have a copy of that to bring to the game, and also give a copy to the referee that they agree to play with a smaller field or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Steve. I mean, it's going to be communicated through the conference assigners, but it's good to have a copy there in case it doesn't get funneled down.
And I will recommend to the referees, if in case that happens and there's no copy there, please call your assigner. Call me and I will let you know if that's okay or not. More likely it's okay to play.
That's right.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Lenny.
Ryan, one last question, then we will move on. Question is dealing with the postseason and masks. For the postseason assignments, will officials be required to wear masks?
Yes.
Just like everybody else.
Yeah.
During play, Ryan, you're talking about?
No, not during play.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Ready to move on? All right.
Yeah. Chin, you're on, Chin.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So Manny and I are appreciate everybody taking the time. Ryan, thanks for joining us. This is very helpful, and as we're going through this.
Hey, Chin, real quick, before you go to the video, can you bring that information to the referees about restarts indoors if the ball hit the ceiling?
I don't think it's necessarily defined per se in the rule book. So what we have decided, or what the conferences have, the local conferences that Steve assigns, we've talked about in the Big Ten, is that if in those instances where a ball hits the ceiling or something while it's in play, that you will drop the ball at the nearest point where it hits. If that happens to be in the penalty area, it comes outside the penalty area and drop the ball.
Manny, Roger, Ryan?
Yeah, Chin, sorry, I don't want to contradict you in any way, but it's in the section, I believe it's 1.1 in the rule book. It's addressing where it's talking having the indoor facility where you can obviously conduct a college game in there. And then if the ball does land out of bounds, let's say, then the opposing team is given a throw in from the nearest point of where it would, cross the touch line. Then it's also in there that if the ball makes a contact with the overhead, something that's hanging down, or the roof or something, then the play is stopped and it's awarded with the drop ball, like you said.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you. Great. All right. I have no more questions.
Steve. All right. So we're going to talk about, Manny and I are going to take you through violent behavior. As you know, this is one of the changes that's been made, and it's very, very critical. I think that one of the important things that we need to keep in mind as we're thinking about this is, as referees, nothing has changed with respect to what you have to do, right? In terms of issuing a red card for violent behavior, right? The thing that has changed is you have to decipher what level of violent behavior it is, or fighting, and notify the parties appropriately. But the reality is the punishment, as far as you are concerned, is the same, and that is, for that match, that player gets sent off. It gets ejected from the match, right? I'm trying to use the right terminology, NCAA, college versus federation stuff, right? So, but you do have to notify the coaches and the appropriate people that you're giving a violent behavior 1, 2, or fighting before we restart. Now, in conferences where you have video review, you're going to have some help there, but nothing, what we want to talk to you about today as we're going through these things, nothing has changed. And the fact that it's going to be a 1-game suspension or a 2-game suspension should never enter into your thought process when you're actually making that decision. Okay, so that's what we want to start with. All right, so we'll go through these. Go ahead and this is just the definition. I really don't want to go through. You all can see this, but we're just reading words here, right? It was just a way to punish people appropriately. In other words, somebody that does something that's not egregious versus somebody who punches somebody in the face or yanks them down by the hair or stomps on their chest was getting the same punishment. So it was a way for us to punish that differently, not the referees, but the game itself. All right. So we know what the definitions of violent behavior are, correct? Okay, everybody's seen it. Those are immediate. Violent behavior is an immediate red card, but now with violent behavior 1, which is an unwarranted excessive act or use of force when not challenging for the ball, that will be obviously an ejection and a 1-game suspension, okay, which is traditionally what it's been, violent behavior. All right, now what the NCAA has added is a violent behavior 2 category, which used to be encompassed under violent behavior in general. We've just now parsed the 2, which is an unwarranted excessive act or use of force, which is malicious and so extreme and severe that it places participant in danger of physical injury. These acts may include, but not limited to, headbutting. And you're going to see instances of a violent 1 headbutt and a violent 2 headbutt when we show you some videos. So that's why we say, but not limited to, headbutting, elbow to the face or head, stomping, kicking a defenseless person, or hair pulling. And we'll talk about that as well. There's kind of a difference between hair pulls, if you will. All right. Anything violent behavior 2 is going to be a 2-game suspension. Again, none of that suspension information should enter into your thought process when you are making these decisions. You referee the game, you make a determination. You should not be thinking about, well, I don't want this team to get 2-game suspension, so I'm going to write it as violent 1. This should not come into play at all. All right. Great. Fighting. Fights defined as deliberate strike or punch, attempt to strike. Remember, there is that word attempt. There is that word attempt, and I know, Manny, you like to remind people very much that the attempt to strike is pretty significant here. Or punch another player, official, coach, bench personnel in a malicious manner. So again, this is a 2-game suspension, as fighting has always been. Okay, but now these 2 categories of violent behavior plus fighting give us a little bit more clarity in terms of what's what and who's who. All right.
And Chen, as you have mentioned, referees, you don't have to connect for it to be a red card. All of us have seen many times, we use that excuse that they didn't connect, so it's not an ejection. That's not correct. So attempting to strike, we need to keep that in mind.
Yep.
Thank you, Chen.
You got it. And here's what I was mentioning before. It's your responsibility to communicate to the official scorekeeper, right? The head coaches and the player, all right, of violent behavior 2, fighting, which one it is. You have to delineate. Okay, delineate. Now, if you are unsure, violent 1, violent 2, fighting, and the conference you work in has proper technology. A lot of them don't, but if you have the technology, right, a good process would be to take your time, consult your team, and then perhaps go to the video to determine whether or not you're comfortable with violent 1 or violent 2 or fighting. That's okay. It's allowed under video review, as you can see here. Ryan, anything to add there from the NCAA perspective?
No. I think you're doing well so far. Yep.
Excellent. All right, so let's move on, right? So let's talk about violent 2 and fighting considerations, right? We mentioned a couple of them before, but think about these. Complete disregard for the safety of an opponent, right? Or puts an opponent in danger of physical injury or tries to physically injure them. We tell you not to interpret intent, but malice is something that you can see. Malice is more of something that occurs as a result of intent a lot of times, right? So malice, it shows clear malice, right? And it's brutal. It's the one that you go, oh man, that is not right. That's the foul, right? Clearly presenting a serious risk of injury, severity of action, right? Premeditation. Is there any premeditation involved, or can you see that? Okay. And what degree of intensity does the player use? Where's the contact at? So these are just some of the considerations when you're thinking about violent behavior 2 or fighting, and the differences between violent behavior 1 and the other 2. All right, let's do some analysis, right? We're going to run the video and then we're going to come back to it and talk about it. So let's go with number 1 first. All right. We'll let that go. Watch. And as you're watching some of these, watch the crew too and how they react. All right. So in this one, I think what we have is clear, right? We have actual punches thrown, right? I think one of them may not have connected, but in Manny's, as Manny said earlier, it wasn't for lack of trying, right? So here we have a clear fighting incident, right? That one connects, and then I think somebody else tries to throw one back. So here we have a clear fighting incident, and we would have 2 ejections here, correct?
Yeah, this one, Chen, and referees, this one should be 100% clear, obvious, no question about it. You have to eject these players for fighting for the reasons that Chen just mentioned.
Perfect. Okay, next video, we'll try and move through some of these. I'm sure we're gonna have lots of questions. Boom. So I'm sure everybody sees this. We got both players involved, both players throwing punches, right? So this is kind of this is probably even easier than the last one. Not that you could get easier than the last one, but this too would be an example, clear example of fighting, right? No issues. Boom. And boom. Right? So you see White misses on her haymakers, but that's still an attempt to punch. So okay.
On this one, Chen,
Yes.
if you could notice, if all the referees would notice that, you can go ahead and play it again, Doug, there, Atlanta. Play it one more time. You can notice the coach ran onto the field and tried to be a peacemaker. This is fine. This is good. This is fine. No problem at all with this. He's trying to calm down the players, trying to, diffuse the situation some. So this is no problem. Another observation here that you need to be careful from a referee perspective is touching players. We need to be very, very careful when it comes to touching players. If you are trying to, spread them apart, you're trying to get them away from each other. I wouldn't recommend that normally. So just bear that in mind, please. In this, this kind of situation on touching players. Ryan, is anything you would like to add?
I mean, the only thing that I'll add, I think it was pretty much set up in the introduction. I mean, the whole objective of this is to correctly penalize the malicious, severe, extreme actions. And why we're putting this basically in the hands of us, in the hands of the referees, a few reasons. There was inconsistency with the fighting rule. If you took a literal technical approach to the fighting rule as it was before this year, you could technically read it and say you really could not give a red card for violent conduct, violent behavior, and it not be, quote, fighting. So objective number 1 of this is to rectify that. So we now have some options. And then number 2 is, I mean, many of the coaches have been asking for a, quote, review committee of some sort. But if you think about it, with all the number of games and the teams, it would literally be a full-time job for a committee of X number of people in the fall in order to review red card send off situations and come up with a ruling. And then you have inconsistency with video quality, etc. So if you just kind of don't overthink this and keep it in the back of your mind, is the clear intent is to just keep these malicious, severe actions out of the game and to penalize them appropriately. And I do agree, Chen, with your comment earlier that we should not be thinking in the back of our mind, well, this is going to be a 2-game suspension, so I don't want to write it up as violent too or for fighting. However, I will preface it, and I won't put this in writing, but I will preface it with the fact that some of these videos that you're going to see is going to be clear to you that the action that happened just common sense will tell you it's more severe than a simple 1-game suspension. So when it rises to that level, that's when you want to go to the next level with the violent behavior too. And if it's something that it's not clear and obvious, like we, maybe do similar to like a dog. So if it's not clear, if it's not obvious to you, then instead of penalizing up, you want to penalize it down. So if it's borderline in your mind, is it 1 or 2? It's not obvious, then you want to go to 1. I think the way that we have these videos ordered will show you the progression in these different actions.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, let's look at some examples of just what Ryan was talking about, right? In the next video. Go ahead, Lana and Doug. All right, so let's take a look at this one. And bang. So here we've got an instance, off the ball, 2 players running together, and the arm comes up, it cocks, and it hits the head and neck area, right? This is more severe than a violent behavior 1. So you'll see here that this should be violent behavior 2. And let's look at the position and the analysis real quick there, Lana. Right. So clearly throws it. I mean, brings it up, cocks it, and throws it. The only intent there is to injure and hurt. That's it. That's the only reason to explain that. So, all right, let's look at some more examples. Tough to see from far away, but when you get this replay, it'll be very clear. Now, let me ask, because this is really, really interesting. And I don't need an answer. This is a rhetorical question. But how many of us, and I include us, over our refereeing career have always said, well, the goalkeeper gets the benefit of the doubt, and he's coming out going for the ball. He just missed it a little bit, right? This is stuff, quite frankly, that we need to recognize this when it happens. We need to recognize when goalkeepers are taking liberties like this just to injure. All right? Just to injure. All right, so let's put the analysis up. All right, and I'm sure everybody would pretty much agree. This goalkeeper comes out. Literally, it almost looks like he misses the ball on purpose so that he can take the shot. So this is definitely violent behavior too. All right, let's look at another one. Bye. Now, what I want you to do is compare the severity of the previous clip with the elbow to the severity of this foul in the back. Right? The ball's long gone. It's to the upper back. There's no challenge for the ball. It's clearly meant to send a message here, right? But does it have that malicious aspect to it, right? So this one we would say is violent behavior 1. And it's different, right, than the previous one we just watched where there's an elbow cocked, pulled, and swung at the face. Okay? Still a red card, yes? Off the ball, in the back, not necessary, but doesn't raise to the level of violent 2. All right,
Also,
Manny, you want to take the next few?
Also, Chin, if I may add, as everyone can see, some people are asking, why not violent behavior 2? The committee, the NCAA committee, and the rules editor and their committee, their position or thinking was that it hit to the back there on this type of play. It's not legal, and it is a red card, but they just felt it wasn't to the level of the violent behavior 2. Also, bear in mind, everyone, that these clips that we're watching is the NCAA official position on this. Some you might think you might question, but this is the actual position the NCAA on these plays. So we just wanted to share that with you also. Go ahead, Doug. As everyone can see here, goalkeeper collects the ball and clearly goes out of her way and uses excessive force here to run into the opponent. As you can see, she clearly goes out of her way, 2-3 meters and runs in, with speed and some force at the opponent. Deviates from where most goalies would go to distribute the ball. So this one's a rather clear, violent behavior 1, and she's putting the opponent in danger, and she's putting the opponent's health there at risk. So we have to protect, and we have to deal with these accordingly and show and eject the player for this one with a violent behavior 1. Ryan, you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't.
Go ahead, Doug. As everyone can see here, player clearly stomps in an extreme manner here the opponent. So for everyone, this one, as you can see, is a different level, and this one would have to be a violent behavior 2 on this one. Clearly, I mean, this is we cannot allow this in the game. This cannot be just a red card. This has to be a violent behavior 2, just because of the the risk that this player puts the opponent at risk here. So we cannot allow this in the game. Ryan, you got this one for us, Ryan. You're on, Ryan. Can you hear me? Ryan, can you hear?
He's on mute.
Okay. On this one here, as everyone can see, the player jumps and lands, and makes no attempt to play the ball, and clearly, steps and makes contact on the ground with the opponent. A clear violent behavior here. There was some question on whether it be 1 or 2. The committee felt it was 1, but this is one of those that's so close that, as at least speaking from my conferences, speaking from the angle here, I could support, violent behavior 2 on this one. I could support that, but we think, as far as the committee is concerned, violent behavior 1 is correct. Steve, could you support a violent behavior 2 on this?
I will support it 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
So how about you, Roger?
You will.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. And Chen?
Yeah, we would support a violent behavior 2 as well.
Okay. All right. Next one, you're on, Chen.
Excellent. So this is the famous clip, right? This went viral. I don't even know how many years ago it was. And, we often see this clip, but we don't often see the rest of the match. But this, from a long time ago, right? If you remember, then they put into the rule that hair pulling was now an ejection. Hair pulling is still an ejection, right? There are just different levels now. So this is clearly an attempt to hurt, harm. It's malicious. It has all those characteristics of a violent behavior 2, correct? And so this would be considered violent behavior 2 now. Now, where you used to have to put it, and this is to Ryan's explanation earlier, what the goal of the NCAA was, is we used to have to say this was a fighting incident, and that would get the 2-game suspension, which the NCAA thought was warranted of this. But now with the 2 categories of violent behavior, you can distinguish this type of hair pull, which is clearly meant to injure and harm and is malicious, from somebody who grabs and realizes they grabs and lets go, or something of that nature, right? So violent behavior too, we've kind of all seen that, and let's hope we never see that kind of stuff again, that type of game. So go ahead, Doug. Great. Okay. Let's see if we've got a replay that gets us a closer view. I love that these are back to back, because you get a real good indication. So we just saw a hair pull, okay, that was really nasty, and now we've got another hair pull. So Corey Rockwell comes in and gives a red card, which he should give, right? But here's the significance. It's this person's beating me. I can't let them get away from me. I'm going to grab. And the closest thing to her, quite frankly, wasn't the jersey. It was her ponytail. So she grabbed. But what did she immediately do? Closest thing. So I'm going to grab it. And I'm grabbing. And now I let go. This is why it's violent behavior 1. Right? It's not a malicious grab versus what we just saw with the New Mexico BYU. Okay? So violent behavior 1. All right. Okay. So if you remember when we read that definition, not limited to headbutts and so on in the very beginning when we first started, okay? Take a look at that headbutt. He is about a foot away and launches his head into the opponent's head, okay? This is clearly meant to injure, harm, and is clearly malicious, right, with excessive force. So this is violent behavior 2. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you are probably saying, hey, what about the guy that came in and pushed him afterwards? We aren't dealing with that here. You're going to manage that, when you manage that. And I'm not going to tell you how to manage that here, right? If my teammate gets headbutted and I don't, if I push somebody in the chest, that's different than I come in and I throw a punch or something else, okay? So, but clearly this is violent behavior 2. That player intends to really harm, and it is extreme, right, in terms of its violence. It doesn't belong in the game at all. And so this has to be violent behavior 2.
Chen, if I may add, first of all, Doug, can you, some of the people are asking Roger if we can make it full screen, a bigger screen. It's a little small for them. I don't know if you minimize that or not, but if you can expand the video, Doug, some of the referees are asking. I don't know if that's possible or not at this point. Also here, on this one here, you can see, as Chen mentioned, the player just goes in and just lined him up and went with force, and you can just tell clearly what he's doing. It wasn't he just tapped him or anything. So this is clearly, violent behavior 2. We're going to show you a different type of headbutt here in a play in a minute, so you can just show you the differences on these 2 type of plays. Go ahead, Chen.
Yep, perfect. So go ahead and play this one, Doug. And you're going to see the distinct difference here between the one we just saw and this one. So now they come together, much different, right? Doesn't cock, doesn't go into him, kind of walks up to him and puts his forehead on him and keeps going, right? And, you know, the other guy, of course, seizing an opportunity, takes advantage of that. So this is one where it's not what we just saw, right? This is one that he's not attempting to injure him. This is more of a two boys being boys, so to speak. But he does stick his forehead into the other players. And so guess what? We still have to send him off. Now, the thing that I would tell you here, if we play this just one more time, now I want you to be observant of referee positioning and the crew and how they handled this, because I think it's really important. This one, in my opinion, should have been prevented. We should have anticipated this as a crew, that these players were going to come together after this. It was setting up. It took a long time to actually occur. So it wasn't like it immediately happened. This crew had time to get into that space. As soon as that player started to get up and walking, boom, that's when we've got to be back there in that space. So now instead of being proactive, we're reacting, and now we actually are throwing somebody out, deservedly so, but could we have prevented them and kept everybody in the game? So just another observation there. All right, let's go on.
We'll go full screen. Everybody's asking for.
They
Doug?
still have it on panelist view, Doug, is what some of the referees are telling me. Doug, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
Here
Thank
go.
you, Doug. Thank you.
Okay.
Manny, sorry to jump in, but I think that's on the user's end where you have to click the speaker view. If you're seeing 6 or 7 small boxes, the video being one of them, then I think you have gallery view selected. So if you go to the top right there of your screen, you see view, just click that and then go to speaker view. And that should make the video very large and put all of our pictures up top in a smaller box.
Gotcha. No, I'm fine, but some of the speakers or some of the referees are saying they can't see it very well, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah, that's who I was telling.
They say it's good now.
Okay, run this again. If you blink, you may miss it, but watch it carefully. Bang. Okay, ball's not even in play yet. Okay, and so what we've got here is somebody bumping somebody from the back and a player getting agitated, and finally says, I'm going to take a shot and this will teach you your lesson. So we get an elbow right in the gut and bang, right there. Okay, so it's not going to injure. It's not meant to injure. It's meant to send a message, and it's not of a malicious nature. So here we just have violent behavior 1.
And that particular clip there, if I could just give a little bit of color on it, that one, that was a controversial play from the university's perspective, because you get into this, the athlete that got the red card, she's a senior, and now she has to miss 2 games. And as I was stating earlier, based on the technical definition of the previous rule, it is striking, and striking by the rule was fighting, and quote, fighting was 2 games. So this is a great example of why we changed this rule and put more criteria and put more options in for us, because I think anyone can look at this and think again, and I hate to bring up the number of game suspension, but a 2-game suspension for this player for this action would be way too harsh. I believe we would all agree with that.
Excellent. Yep. Does the punishment fit the crime, so to speak, on this?
Would
All
you
right.
not also say, Ryan and Chen, that this was more of clearly a red card, but more of a reaction type than it wasn't something that really looked overly premeditated or anything? Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Again, are we being proactive? Because of our demeanor here, in our lack of urgency as this thing, has happened, look what it flares into. Right? Flares into something that we could have probably at least either prevented or kept the damage from being too bad. And now we've got a whole host of things we got to work on. Okay, so this one I don't think was too hard. Right? We got fighting. The only question is who's getting thrown out, right? So hopefully if you don't have technology, you're writing names, both ARs, and everybody's writing what they can see, and then you're coming together to make the determination. And if you have technology, you're going to your technology to see if you can decipher what's going on here. Manny, anything else there?
Yeah, basically as it's stated in the explanation at the bottom, you have to issue a red card or two, more than likely two here in this situation with in this play. I believe he didn't issue any red cards, correct, Ryan, on this one?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think he did. And that's that's not acceptable. That's just you can't have people swinging and knocking each other into the ground the way they did, and you do nothing. You can't allow that, and no type of card here, no type of red card here.
Okay, Doug, let's go to the next one. We'll do a couple more, and then we'll kind of get to the you make the call. Unless, Manny, we need to move on, and just let me know.
Okay, no, we're good. You're good. You're good.
This is the you make the call section.
Oh, are we already at you make the call?
Already there? Okay.
And
Okay. I thought we had a few more. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought we had a couple. Go ahead with the next one then, Doug. Next video. Oh, yeah, we've got two more before the you make the call. Sorry, this one and one other.
Ryan, why don't you take this one, Ryan? Do you mind taking this one? Ryan?
No, go ahead, Manny. I'll jump in and add.
Okay. Go ahead, Chen. Sorry, I wanted to give Ryan some airtime.
No, I have enough airtime.
So what do we have here? We definitely got fighting, right? Everybody's got to be on their toes to kind of figure out who's doing what and who's where, but we definitely got fighting here. I don't think there's any question that any of us have about that. Could we have prevented stuff? It's tough. They get after it pretty quickly. The referee's there, right? And then it just goes. So a tough situation, but we've got no less than a couple of red cards, if not more, for fighting. And, this is going to be a tough one for you to manage and get sorted out and see if you can keep, 7 on 7.
Now you're on, Ryan, or else I'll talk if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing on this one I would say, in the ideal scenario, as Chen said, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to process, a lot of decisions to make, very quickly. The ideal scenario here is that you would have the white jersey player, number 77, and then the player in the dark blue jersey, number 9, would receive fighting red cards. I guess that's comment number 1. Number 2, considering the amount of people that are engaged in the pushing, the striking, the attempting to strike, a couple players get it thrown to the ground. This by definition has to be a fight. It kind of looks like a fight. It smells like a fight. Anybody looking at it would say that this was a fight. So you would need to go fighting in a scenario like this. And then, we could talk a little bit about the referee, how the referee and the referee crew actually manage this. And obviously, if you look at this, we need to be very much more active with the mass confrontation a little bit earlier before it gets escalated in. Rather than, at this point, there's not much we can do. But prior to the eruption of this scenario, I think it would be beneficial that the referee crew be much more proactive and active with this to try to prevent before it escalates.
Excellent. Next video, Doug. So type your answers when you watch this. Type your answers in the boxes.
And this one is a small video, referees. So it's not your screen. It's don't blame Doug. This one is a small clip.
Off the ball. Bang. And I think I mentioned on the first webinar, this is how bad this is. That player missed about 4 to 5 games, 4 to 5 weeks of the season as a result of this incident here. She had a fractured orbital bone and a concussion. Good. Violent 2, I see.
You know, Chin, if I could jump in with the one comment too, and
Yeah.
you know, it hasn't been mentioned yet, but remember we have video review options for violent behavior and for fighting. Violent behavior 1, violent behavior 2, or for fighting. So even going back to that last melee inside the goal area, the penalty area, you know, that's something where, if available, we can definitely use a video review for. This particular clip, if I recall, it was it was totally missed. So, you know, again, something like this, you see a player down on the ground, nobody sees something, kind of put your common sense hat on. You know, you smell something here doesn't seem right. You have video review available, and you can go to the monitor, to the camera, to the replay to take a look at something like this as well.
Yep. As a matter of fact, the conference they were playing in didn't have video review. The next time I talked to the coach after this, she sent it to me and said, I assume that since the Big Ten has video review, your guys would have reviewed this and it would have been taken care of. And to which I said, absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. Excellent. Violent 2, you can see it there. Let's go on to the next one, Doug.
Reminder, just to put your answers in the chat. Don't put them in the question and answer section.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, let's look at this real quick. Okay. Now, this one looks an awful lot like what? Looks an awful lot like the New Mexico one versus the Duke one, correct? Watch. We yank.
Brigham Young, Chen.
Oh, Brigham Young, that's correct. There's a yank to get her out of the way and yank her all the way to the ground with this. This is not, I need to get you, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get position. This is, here you go. Okay, I see the answers coming in. Good, good, good. All right, excellent, everybody. Go ahead there, Doug. Move that forward. There you go. If you went violent 1, this is an instance where, you know, if you went violent 1, could we get away with it as assigners? I know that I probably could. And what about the rest of you guys?
Yes, I could support violent 1, but I think the correct decision is violent 2, violent behavior 2.
Yep. Excellent. Let's go to the next one. Okay, what's this remind you of? This reminds you of that Marshall clip, or does this remind you of the clip right just outside of the box where he launches with the head? Right? Okay, 1-1. Excellent. I see a lot of VB1s, mostly VB1s, which we would agree with. This is violent behavior 1, right? This is more meant to intimidate, but is a headbutt, so it has to be sent. He has to be ejected. But this isn't meant to injure the person that he's headbutting. Okay. All right.
As you can see, the referee displayed a yellow card, but that's incorrect. We recommend, or the correct decision here, the fair decision, the right decision would be violent behavior VB1 here.
It's a headbutt and it makes contact. So you have to send him off.
He's got to go.
With the pause here, one of the questions come quite frequently in the chat. What is the one word difference between violent behavior 2 and fighting? If we have to use one or two words, the difference.
Ryan, what do you think?
One word, Roger, or two words? I mean, I would say if it looks like a fight, then it's a fight when you get multiple players involved. But if you look at the technical definition, fighting is a deliberate strike or punch or an attempt to strike or punch in a malicious manner, of course. So a lot of these, I'll be honest, if you get to VB2 or if you get to fighting, at the end of the day, that's really what matters, because some of these obviously could be categorized as a fight just based on the definition, even when there's only one player involved with the action. But I mean, my recommendation, would be to, when you have multiple players involved, and if it looks like a fight, then we would call it a fight. That answered, Roger? Makes sense?
Looks like a fight, smells like a fight, feels like a fight, walks like a fight. It's a fight, people.
All right, this one I see a lot of VB1s, and Doug, go ahead and put up what our analysis says. We agree with you, VB1. No, this was the one where he hits him in the face.
No, this is the St. John's game.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this isn't the really good clip quality. Quality of a clip, but if you take it to where the replay angle is, you get the best look at it.
So this is where technology can help you, right? If you know that he's going, for example, but you're not really sure where he connected with him exactly, you didn't see it exactly clearly in terms of the intensity of it. If you've got technology, utilize technology. Listen, we've got time, folks, for some of this stuff. We already know we're going to throw the person out, right? So the red card can come out, right? But use technology to determine, right, whether you're going VB1, VB2, or fighting. If that technology is available, err on the side of using it. That's what it's there for, to get it right. All right, let's go to the next one. And that one was just hard to see, guys, so we understand. This one, not so much. Okay, let's see your answers. I don't think there's an angle that doesn't show this. I think they all show it pretty clearly. I don't think there's a place on the field the referee could have been where that wasn't very clear. Okay, good. So violent behavior 2, right? I tell you this, if you're refereeing in the Big Ten, for me, this is a violent behavior 2, and that is what we would expect in the conference. Could I get away with a violent 1 in terms of dealing with coaches and administrators? I probably could, because it still resulted in an ejection, which is the right decision. But the preference here for us would be violent 2. Oof. Right? So there's one of those things, right? I'm watching this, and what was my reaction? Oof. Right? That's part of that gut thing. What is the intent of this? I mean, she's not even facing her, right? So this is eerily similar to me, that earlier clip where we saw the guy literally stomp on his chest. The guy was getting fouled, ended up getting frustrated and just stomping. This is eerily similar to that for me. What do you think, Manny?
Yeah, I easily support Either one's correct. Yeah, but violent behavior 2, correct decision. I could some referees have spoken to me and they thought it was violent behavior 1. But the key there is that we got the violent behavior correct, and we got the correct color as far as the card. And like I said, the NCAA's position here, it's violent behavior 2.
Anything to add to that, Ryan, in terms of, we had some people think maybe violent behavior 1. Anything to add that kind of?
No, I mean, I would just say Manny made a good point. I think it's nothing we do is in soccer is necessarily absolute a lot of times. So if you're within that one area of, or, one link away from, what the punishment is. I mean, if you have just a foul here, that's a problem. If you have a yellow card on here, that's a problem. If you decide that it's a violent behavior 1 versus a 2, it's still a red card. You still got that right. So, I guess at the end of the day, I wouldn't get it too much, hung up on. Again, we're looking at this when we're out on the field in one angle, real time, live speed. We don't get to do overs on these, so it's a little bit different looking at the video clips, but. That's my opinion is, back to the other one you said, Chen, in your conference, you would like to see a VB2, that's great. I think my opinion is on a lot of these, if we're within one area of punishment from the other one, then we're doing pretty well with them.
Agreed. Yep, absolutely agree. Manny, why don't you close us out with these last couple?
Okay. Long balls played there. You can see there's moderate amount of force, but this was made after the ball's played, after the referee blows a whistle. It's in a malicious manner by the defender here, and it's extreme. He hits him like in the neck and the face area with pretty hard, rather hard. It appears like. All right, so here's one. The decision here is violent behavior 1, but violent behavior 2 is all supported. This is one of those close ones, like Ryan mentioned a minute or two ago. It's we got the right color. We classified it correctly as violent behavior. Some of you, if you're 100% sure, or like Steve used to say in the old days, if you're 110% sure it's violent behavior 1, that's what you report. If you're 110% sure it's violent behavior 2, and that's what you report, we can support that. Correct, Ryan?
Yeah, as assigners, guys, you got to understand, if coaches are upset between the distinction between 1 or 2, that's going to come to us later. The critical aspect of it is that player is no longer playing that commits that type of foul. And that's, quite frankly, at the end of the day, what we're going to be discussing with coaches, and then the nuances later. So the key is to make sure, as Ryan said earlier, you don't want to be 2 levels away. Being 1 level away and in the same punishment arena is different than being a yellow card when somebody shouldn't be on the field any longer.
Thank you, Jen.
Yep.
Next clip here. Doug, thank you. If you can play that. He's being tightly marked, the player here. Referee didn't see this right away. There's contact, appears to be like in the neck, chest, lower face area here. It didn't see, if you can play it again, Doug. Thank you. It didn't seem like it was too bad of contact, but there was contact. And there's a push there to, like I said, to his neck area. It's kind of difficult. It's not the best angle we have here on this video, so also bear that in mind. on this one, and I've had discussions with many referees on this one. The official answer here, if you go to the answer, if you can go to the notes, is yellow card. And Ryan, I'd like to bring you into this discussion, as you can maybe give us a little bit of insight, because there's been a lot of discussion on this play. This I've had with the last couple of weeks with many referees and other assigners. And did the committee rule a yellow card because it wasn't clear to the face, or it was not much force, or what exactly? What are your the committee's thoughts here on this play?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Manny. So a couple points I want to make here. The point of this clip wasn't necessarily to debate whether it should be a yellow or a red. That's in the opinion of the referee. If you're live in the game and you feel that this was a strike to the face, then you should send the player off for violent behavior 1, 2, or for fighting, whatever your opinion is. When we looked at this, again, not the perfect quality video clip, but we felt this was more open hand push. It's not clear if it's to the upper chest or to the face area, but we don't see much of force in this at all. And we didn't feel, just looking at this clip, that it really rose to the level of excessive force, but if it's in your opinion that you think it should be, that's fine. I think the point here, though, was to differentiate the different level of severities. We saw other strikings, we saw other violent behavior incidents that were much more severe than this particular clip here, which we felt was more of an open hand push with very little, if any, force.
Hey, Ryan, may I add something to it? To me,
Yeah.
What I think, anything to the face have no business to be there. It should be a record, in my opinion. And if the referee does that, I will support it 100%.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with that, especially off the ball to the face. Sure.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that.
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
Ryan, one of the questions, since we just finished that last segment, is dealing once again with video review, and this after the match. After the match is completed, the referees have gone to the locker room and have in the process of processing their NCAA match report via online, and reviewing the clip in the locker room. They deemed it was violent behavior 1 on the field, but in the locker room they saw that it's actually, based on the rule, is violent behavior 2. Can they change that information at that time?
No, absolutely not. You can only use video review in your decision-making process prior to the play being restarted. So once the play restarts, then you cannot use the video review at that point. In that particular scenario, Roger, that you just described, that would just be report to the conference, to your conference coordinator, and the conference would take a look at it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Great question.
So like Ryan said there, once the ball's put back in play, you can't change that. You cannot change that. Correct, Ryan?
Correct.
Remember that, please, referees. Critical that we all remember that. Couple takeaways, spend a minute here before we go on to the next, the rules changes here, is with the violent behavior 1, if we're 110%, like I'm using Steve's old line, if you're 110% sure it's a violent behavior 1, that's what you report. Don't wimp out, put it nicely. If like Chen and Ryan mentioned earlier, that you don't want to issue a violent behavior 2, even though it clearly is, just because maybe they had another player ejected earlier, or because some of you guys make up crazy reasons, so just like I said, it's critical we report what's correct, and we do what's correct and what's fair, according to the rules of play there. Chin or Ryan and Steve, Roger would like to add anything to that.
Move on.
Nope, that's exactly correct.
All right. Next one, we're gonna do this quickly because we'll have like a little Q&A at the end here. We have probably like a 15-minute video here, 12-minute video on the some of the rule changes on the goal kicks, on the restarts. So we're ready to go. Next clip, first clip, I mean. Okay, on the goal kick. As you can all read that, you know, you can play to a teammate in the penalty area. Most of you know that because most of you are doing, you know, most of you are already doing, watching European games, doing other games. So these are already implemented. Okay. An example there. Okay. Next one. Same here. Everybody knows this. Go ahead and play it, Doug. Goalie plays the ball out, but obviously, ball outside the area, played back. I'd also like to give special thanks on this video to Kevin Flynn and his ECSR group in Jacksonville area. Okay, then so goalie here decides to switch where they want to play the ball from, but he still cannot go ahead and play that, Doug. Like I said, we'll go through these rather quick, unless I say stop. Deciding what end to go, what side of the goal to go. Plays it. Played back to the goalie. Can he use his hands? No. Everybody knows that. Good. Go ahead, next one. Ball to goalie. Can he use his hands? Nope. Everybody knows. Everybody's aware of that. Okay, so here, if he handles the ball, he cannot handle unless it's been touched by an opponent. If so, it's a IFK for the opponent, for the other team. Goal kick by the goalkeeper. Ball's played back to him. Illegal. Referee blows his whistle. Close proximity to play. That's an ECSR referee there, Paul, Ryan. You see that? Okay.
That's why they're the best.
Okay. And then you're here on number 6. Okay. Can't use his hands. Look at that. Referee reads the game well, doesn't he? He's right there, the guy. Paul told him what to do. He was already prepped. Okay. Teams can't circumvent the law, the rule, excuse me, not law, the rule. As he did there. Referee smelled that, read that right away. He's in there. Good stuff, referee. Okay, then we go into a couple wall situations to show you some examples of this. As you can see, got to stand a meter away, a yard away, excuse me. Nice goal there. Okay. Okay, attacker replaced himself illegally. And the referee goes in there. Watch, as you'll see in this video. Goes in there.
Manny, can you just reiterate the
Go ahead, Chen. You're on, Chen. You're on.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the word in that rule, the difference between the words can and must. Okay? You have to be proactive in these. You're going to have to be proactive with this wall stuff, because you can't tell me that you're going to put somebody a yard from the wall and they're not going to creep, they're not going to do things. The same way the wall would creep on the distance to the ball in the free kick, right? So be proactive and communicate with these players to prevent yourself from having to issue a yellow card that you may not have had to issue by just preventing it.
Use your spray.
Good point, Steve.
Use the spray. Players don't cross the lines. Something about that.
You're on, Chen.
All right, so let's look at a legal wall. Attackers can stand anywhere there's a wall as long as they're a yard away. We just mentioned that. So go ahead, Doug. Okay, so we're going to come in and get them out of the way. Okay. Remember, can and must. And I tell you, if the player has the guts to actually creep back in after you've gone and told them that, you know, that seems like a pretty easy one to me. After you've isolated them and had a discussion with them. Okay, anywhere you're at, you have to be a yard from the wall. So here's an example of two people in front of the wall. Nope, now we're not. So we're going to move them. Here's an instance where, guess what? If you got spray, you put a spray down for where the wall's at. And if you got spray, you put spray down right behind that dude's feet and the attacker's feet. And guess what? Now you've identified any anymore. So very simple. Okay, legally in wall, but defenders can't move toward the attackers. So we'll play this. So now we're a yard away. Everybody's behaving the way they should be. Right? No problems here.
Did you like that left foot, Chen?
My left foot was never remotely close to being that good.
That was mine.
So, what about the attacker moving into the wall just before the free kick? This one, we're coming out. Okay, so let's look at an example of that. Okay. Now, again, how many of you want to do that? Take a free kick away to give an indirect coming out if you haven't been proactive and made it absolutely clear that that attacker better not get close to that wall. I'm just saying. All right. Go ahead, Manny.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Chen. Make it obvious to everyone, as Chen mentioned. Make it obvious to everyone what you're doing. Let them know you're not going to put up with that nonsense of them moving by the wall. And that way, if you make it obvious and clear and make it public, then if you do have to caution somebody or, you know, the decision you have to make, everybody's going to understand because you try to prevent it and he or she, the player, was not listening. So it's on them in that case. You know,
That's stupid. You should get a yellow card then.
Yeah.
What now?
Yep.
Okay. Saw this before. Okay, all attackers got to remain outside the penalty ball until a goal kick has been taken, it's been played the ball. Good. Okay, here's a case the attacker goes in early. Go ahead and play that one, Doug. Excuse me, attacker was in the penalty area, not goes in early. He's already in the penalty area, excuse me. Okay, attacker in the penalty area, but not involved. All right, use your judgment there as a referee. Their referees, you know, being proactive and trying to move them out or telling them, hey, let's not do that again. Go ahead, Doug. Oh. All right. So I thought we'd end up here with a couple minutes, gentlemen, referees, ladies and gentlemen, of some questions. I'd like to thank on that video. We put that together, and that video is on our website. Is it not, Steve? On the ECSR website, the the video of the goal kicks and the plays we just showed? Steve?
Pardon me?
Yeah,
I
the
was-
video that we just showed on the website.
People text me and I was trying to answer
Yes.
back to them.
Yeah, okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Roger. So anyway, I'd like to thank Kevin Flynn. I think I mentioned that before, and his referees from the Jacksonville, North Florida area. Yeah, Florida. All right. And we're gonna have a few minutes here. Roger, you're on, Roger, for questions for Ryan, for Chin, for you, for Steve. So ask away, referees. If you have any questions, we'll try to get to as many as we can the next 8-10 minutes. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, Manny, basically what I've been doing is the chat's going back and forth, texting Ron with that information. So pretty much all the questions are up to date. I'm just seeing right now, do we have any additional questions coming through? So bear with me.
Speak up.
You're on mute, Raj.
You're on
There
mute.
you go. Best way to be for me sometimes in life. Ron, can you briefly go over? I know that we added some protocols with COVID in reference to the violent behavior 2, in reference to coughing. I know that was amended after our presentation was put together here. Can you just briefly go over that addition to it?
Roger,
It's in
I
our
don't know if you did anything with coughing. It was spitting.
It's in the memo. Yeah, in the memo that was dated for all of us, I just briefly, it added coughing to it. The memo that's posted on our website on the NCAA.
Well, coughing on a player, but not.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying? Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yes.
I
Yeah, it's
apologize.
intentionally or deliberately coughing. Yes.
You're on mute, Raj.
Raj, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm just reading the questions first.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You're off again, Roger.
I think he's reading through them. Yep, he's reading through them to filter them.
Okay, but just have him ask one or two now.
4 years of engineering school, Roger. That's what got me to figure that out.
Well, he's reading through those, Ryan. While Roger's reading through those, is there anything else, Ryan, you'd like to add, or Steve, or Chen?
No, nothing here, Manny.
I just say, hey, for those of you that have games this spring, it's gonna be, and Ryan probably he's probably thinking the same thing, but it's gonna be tricky. Have patience. Communication is gonna be very, very critical between your crew, the school that you're refereeing, the assigner that gave you the game. I think communication is gonna be really, really critical this spring, like it never has been, quite frankly.
Steve, you're on.
What?
Anything to add before we
Nothing to
finish
add.
up?
Any questions? Any questions for me?
Any questions, Roger, for
Yes.
the guys? Or
Here we
Brian?
go. Question once again. This is kind of a COVID question. I'm putting it toward Ryan. Are there any guidelines or base practices the NCAA has in reference to sanitizing the balls? Who's responsible for that information, and et cetera? As you can imagine, Ryan, adding that.
Well, I can say that we as officials are not responsible for sanitizing the balls. I would say that would be a home team, home university game management would be, but that's not something we want to take on the responsibility of doing.
Many a question came in reference to you, in reference to the Big 12 COVID testing for referees. Any information give them for that in reference to the Big 12 testing?
Yes, the plan is to continue as we to do the same testing, where they'll send you the test kit a week before the game. You do it that day, you send it back next day, and then you'll have the you'll have your results like 3 days before. And if there's a positive, we'll call you right away. With my other conferences, there's no testing required. My other three in the Conference USA, ASUN, and Southland, there is not testing required. Big 12 is the only one where there's testing required.
Ryan, this is for you, and I guess for the entire panel. What is done when a player gator is pulled around from around their neck? Players, the gator.
Be clear on that. You mean an opponent pulls an opponent pulls a gator from another player, saying an opponent?
Well, that
Correct.
would be judged in the, I mean, if it's done in a way that, I mean, if it's accidentally done, then I would say nothing is done. But if, in our opinion, it is done in a deliberate manner to harm the player, then we would punish that as a misconduct, whatever level of severity that it is. It could be anything, I would say, from a caution to a red card. I think that went too general of a question without seeing an actual example. But I think you just had to read that situation.
Yeah, I know. I agree with Ryan. If it's you got to see the play, you got to see a picture. But if it's in a malicious, violent manner, and he's pulling them down to the ground with the gator, then obviously you're looking at in that extreme situation, it's a violent behavior.
That's an easy call, guys. That's a very easy call to make. Come on.
Think of that gator as an extension of their actual jersey.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you want to think of. Could you give a red card for yanking somebody down by their jersey? Well, if you yanked them on the top of their head, yanked them head over heels on their head or something like that. But in other words, that gator would be an extension of their jersey, their shorts, or anything.
Yeah, but Chen, hang on, Chen, let me interrupt you. But here's the thing: there's a difference between somebody just grabbing your gator and barely pulling it versus somebody grabbing your gator and pulling you to the ground.
Totally agree.
That's what I'm saying. You have to, as Ryan mentioned, you have to see the play to really tell for sure.
Yes, my point was you can't think of the gator as a hair pull. Pulling the gator like you would think of a hair pull. I just want to make sure that clarification's there.
Okay, I know you're going. Okay, gotcha.
Last question that will come through the chat, especially we're talking about indoor facilities. With the drop ball from, with the drop ball being from the ceiling, be dropped to the opposing team, giving the new law changes for drop balls.
Read that question one more time.
I'm like you.
It's a good question. Yes.
Right. Would the drop would the drop ball from the ceiling be dropped to the opposing team, giving the new guidelines for drop ball? When the right.
Ball would be dropped at the location nearest to where it touched the the ceiling or the structure or whatever. And if it was in the penalty area, then it would be dropped to the goalkeeper. And if it was anywhere else, then it's always dropped to the team that last touched the ball at the location nearest to where it hit. I would say just be practical, with that one if you're in an indoor facility.
Practical and fair and reasonable,
That was the last question. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Go ahead, you close it off, Steve.
We're done, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great season. Any questions you have, please email us. Anything else? Manny, I forwarded I text you some questions here. We can discuss that after that in the call.
Okay. Also, I'd like to thank Ryan for his help. Appreciate your help very much, Ryan. And then Doug, our production team, who did a great job.
Lana,
Doug and your beautiful wife, Lana, where are you guys? There we are.
thank you.
Great job, team. Good stuff. Roger, once we could hear you, you did well. Okay. Once you unmuted yourself, it's good. Chen, great stuff, buddy.
Thanks,
And
everybody. Thank you, guys, all.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Here.
Manny called me.
Okay.